In this video, I'm joined by FPL Salah to look back at double Game Week 23 so far, get some initial thoughts on Game Week 24, and then also have a look at the upcoming game weeks after that. So, Abdul, how are you doing, mate? How's the game week gone so far?
Yeah, the game week's not been great, Jack. I've had an okay week. I mean, the transfers went well. I bought in Mahrez for Bruno, and also bought in Saka for Martinelli. But the Saka Martinelli he's currently 3 points ahead, so we'll see how that kind of plays out in the second matchup. But yeah, generally happy with the transfers. But I think the main decision, which kind of gave me a poor game week so far, is I played Reece James over Luke Shaw, and I was really unsure about which of those to play. And I even done a poll on my Twitter, and I was like 51% to James and 49% to Shaw, so it was really close. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a bad decision. I think when you look at the clean sheet odds for Man United in that game, and Leeds were really unfortunate not to score. I just think it's one of those where it was I feel it was a good decision, but just not a good outcome.
Yeah, 100% agree. I also bench Shaw, and I definitely would have done the same as you. I would have played James, and yeah, you look at the numbers in that game. And just the general game itself, 1.89 XG was it for Leeds?
Yeah, it was 1.89. Yeah.
Maybe you wouldn't have expected it to be that high, but a lot of people were predicting Leeds to at least, attack score, as they usually do and score. Yeah. So, yeah, completely reasonable. But I've got your team up on screen now. I've got to say, though, the transfers themselves, Mahrez in, lovely little move. You've got to be happy with that, as you said. But yeah, overall, is it a red? Is it a green? A little red?
Yeah, so it's about 20k red. So okay. I guess if Mahrez and KDB perform against Arsenal and Saka, then that probably will turn into a green. But yeah, around about 54% of managers in the top 100k played Shaw, so he's put a big dent in that. But yeah, it could still turn into a green. To be honest, I'd be happy with like a greyish small green after this week, because I did take a hit. And a lot of people did play the triple captain on Haaland this week as well, and it does look like he's fit again, because he was like, I seen a tweet where he was training, he was back in training, so yeah, he should be fit for Arsenal as well. So yeah, I'd be happy with just kind of around about the same rank I was at the start of the game week, because the next few game weeks are going to be crucial. When we get to kind of blank double game week 25 and then game week 27, and then we get into the chip strategy, so that's going to be where the gains are going to be made.
100%. It feels like it's the crunch period now. It's kind of just getting started, and every transfer now seems way more valuable than at the start of the season.
100%.
It's just
100%.
If you get something wrong, you're going to be behind for a good couple of weeks. Let's just get straight into your initial thoughts for your team for the next game week, because that is the most pressing issue. So let's have a look. I've got it up on screen now on the My Team tool. Looks pretty good, I will say. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, really happy with it, Jack. I've got Mahrez in there who's got a fixture against Forest. There obviously is a bit of worry about, City rotating in that fixture, because they've got Leipzig, 4 days later. But I don't think Pep's going to make, huge changes. And the thing with City players is, Jack, you know what you're signed up for. You know you're going to get, the odd benching here and there, but the upside makes it worth it. Which Mahrez just showed last week. He was obviously, there was no guarantee he was going to start that fixture, but he did, and he hauled. So. Yeah, so I'm just gonna hope for the best with the City assets, and I'll very, very likely be saving my transfer this week, because my team is fine. And another thing is that I think going into game week 25 with 2 or 3 transfers is going to be vital, because obviously we know now that Liverpool have got a double game week. Who else has got a double game week? Let me just double check. Sorry, I just went blank there. Yeah, so yeah, Arsenal obviously we knew. So Arsenal, Liverpool, Wolves, and Crystal Palace. I think obviously Arsenal and Liverpool are the 2 main teams that we'll be targeting. But everyone's going to have triple Arsenal already. So Liverpool players for me, I'll be looking to bring in at least Mo Salah, and then from there it'll depend on it could be a Nunez, it could be a Jota, it could be a Trent or a Robbo. I don't know yet. I think I'll see where Game Week 24 takes us.
But the general feeling this week is just roll, I guess.
I think so.
Probably for the vast majority of people, unless you were to have spare transfer. So if you had 2 frees this week, what would you kind of be doing? Or what sort of players would you be targeting? Because of course, as you say, the moves would have to be now for the next. I mean, not that they are not normally, but right now, especially with so many doubles and blanks and stuff like that, the
Yeah,
moves would really have to be advanced thinking. So, any players in
definitely.
particular that you'd be looking to bring in this week?
I mean, if I was in like a really good position and
Yeah,
I had two free transfers this week, I'd be looking at kind of setting my team up for, if your team's set up fine for game week 25, where a lot will be, maybe, bringing in, the player, the teams who double in game week 27 early, and the likes of, if you've got like a good starting 11, you can even bring in the likes of, and you've got two free transfers, you can even look at maybe bringing the likes of a Matoma. And
yeah,
then, if you can afford to bench him in game week 25, or a Dunk, or a Brighton defender, or even an Ivan Toney, obviously that's, if you're in a kind of really advantageous position, I don't imagine, many will be in that position. But definitely, I think I think the most important thing is every transfer you make now has to be for a player who has a double coming up, or, has at least has a double in the next few weeks, or, at least doesn't have a blank in game week 25, unless you can afford to bench that player in game week 25 and you've got a good starting 11. So yeah, I think definitely in terms of planning, I don't think we should be looking at kind of 1 week punts. This is not the time to do that. This is kind of like crunch season. It's the calm before the storm, and we really need to prepare for these weeks ahead.
sure, completely agree. Now, looking at your team, obviously you have the 3 City attackers, no City defender, and as you say there, the likes of Salah, Trent, players like that have to be on our minds with the double in 25 coming up. So, the De Bruyne, players like Ake, Cancelo, are they the sort of players you'd be looking to move on for the likes of Salah and Trent?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you still got Cancelo, then I think definitely,
Yeah,
a move to Trent makes sense. Around about the similar price point. You could even go for a Robbo. You can go for, like a Brighton defender. I wouldn't mind that either. Again, if you're prepared well for game week 25, it's a good preparation for game week 27. So yeah, definitely, be looking to be. I mean, I think for me now, what we learned from last week is that obviously I think a lot of people were deciding between Ake and Akanji, and one of them had started, but they both ended up being benched.
yeah,
Which even for Pep was a surprise. But I think what that confirms for us now, Jack, is that Man City defenders are a no-go. I mean, if you want a Man City defense, go for Ederson. I don't particularly fancy Ederson just because of his price point and his low ceiling, but City defenders are a no-go. So I said this previously a few weeks ago, like if you're going to gamble with Pep Roulette, you might as well go for the attackers who've got the more upside. And that's what I've done this week, and I think that's the way forward. And the attackers you go for aren't going to start every game, apart from maybe Haaland. I mean, Haaland might get benched in one game, like I guess a Forest game, but I see him playing, kind of playing all those games. So apart from Haaland, there's nobody really safe from rotation.
sure. It does seem like one of those kind of transitional weeks where everyone's just kind of getting ready and preparing themselves for the key moves that are going to be coming up next week. In particular, let's talk a little bit about Everton players, because obviously they have that double in game week 25 and they've not even been on our radars really for the entire season. But even in the game last night, we saw Tarkowski again hits the post, and then obviously Salah goes up the other end and scores past Pickford. Players like him, players like McNeil, maybe less so. I don't know. What are you thinking of 25? Because they do still have that Arsenal game, so it's not the best of doubles.
It's not the best double, and I think obviously in terms of like attackers, like midfielders or forwards, it's a no go because we've got so many good midfield options. We've got likes of Rashford, Mahrez. We've got Brighton the Brighton midfielders to think about. So in terms of like kind of midfielders and attack, forget. But I think the only place we can really invest is defence. Tarkowski, his price at 4.2 million. That's one of the big attractions, and obviously we know he's got a goal threat as well. Possibly Pickford. If you're if you're holding on to if you've got, for example, an Ederson, then you want to move him on because City won't have any more doubles until at least game week 29 now. So yeah, I mean, I think definitely the defence is investable, and I think those who have got Patterson as well, they'll be praying that I've got him, and I know he was back on the grass. I've seen some training photos, but I mean, he might. It's going to be close for him that week, and I think those who've kept him are just going to have to kind of hope for the best. But Coleman's been playing well.
Yes.
And I do know, I do remember from like, Sean Dyche's days at Burnley, he really doesn't like to change his team. Like he is like one of the most kind of reliable managers when it comes to, team sheets. So if
Especially the
Coleman's
defense as
playing,
well.
yeah, especially in defence. I mean, and if Coleman's playing well, I do find it difficult to believe that Patterson will get back in straight away. So yeah, I think Patterson, Tarkowski, and Pickford for me would probably be the only viable options, for that, for the double game week, and yeah, they're perfectly fine options in my opinion.
Sure. And again, this is all with the caveat that this is very initial thoughts. Obviously, the game week hasn't even ended yet,
Yeah,
and we're talking about moves for not this week, but the coming weeks after that. So this is all very early thoughts, but I think it just gives you a sort of indication that we need to be thinking about these sort of things, and have these plans in mind for any eventual outcomes. Which leads me on to my final question of this video. Now, it might be a little bit too early to ask you about this, and fair enough if it is, but how important should thinking right now on this Tuesday chip strategy? Is that something that we should be considering right now, or is it just a bit too early with way too many different possibilities to come and a lack of information? What do you kind of think about that at this stage?
yeah. I mean, I guess it depends how much time you've got on your hands. I mean, you
That is
make
it.
so. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's no harm in making soft plans. Like
Yeah,
I'll do this chip strategy if this eventuality or that outcome, etc. But we're really not going to be able to decide on a proper chip strategy until Game Week 26. Once we
sure.
get all the kind of permutations for Game Week 28 and 32 onwards, etc. And the doubles for 29. So for me, I won't really be looking at chip strategies. I've seen some kind of people talking about them, and they make sense in terms of when they've been discussing it. But for me, I'll be looking at it. Probably start looking at it at the after Game Week 25. Start looking at soft plans, and once Game Week 26 is over, really start kind of digging in. But yeah, I mean, there's no harm in looking at kind of soft plans, but obviously you can't. I mean, it's pretty much impossible to come up with a concrete chip strategy at this point in time when
Yeah.
there's so much information we don't know yet.
And I also do think that although it is obviously a very good idea to have general plans and think about your moves in advance
Yeah.
and have different routes for what could happen and stuff like that. I do feel like sometimes a lot of people, maybe full-time FPL managers, people that take it quite seriously and want to get their plans in place and are good at the game,
Mhm.
maybe sometimes we just do a little bit too much, and it's worth just sitting back and letting information come to us, and like you're saying, just chilling with it now. It is a long way
Yeah.
away, the chips, because I remember last season we didn't have any sort of idea about was it the doubles in 28, the Wolves and Arsenal games. I might be getting that wrong, but out of nowhere it seemed that a wildcard play just became available, if you remember.
Yeah, I do
And it
remember
turned out
that.
that was
Yeah.
an amazing strategy that did really well for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know for myself that really propelled my season.
Yeah,
But that just
I
was
remember.
never a thing until that point.
Yeah, I remember that clearly because that ruined my. Well, it didn't ruin my season, but it blew my chances of a top 1K finish because
Yeah,
a lot went. I think a lot went for the the wildcard 28,
yeah,
free hit 29, and bench boost 32.
exactly. Yeah,
Like all the chip playing like one after each other.
yeah,
That I went for the more, losing the chips later on. But yeah, exactly. And it's a similar kind of situation this season. I've actually seen, some chip strategies, being discussed that were similar to that. But I think it's a wildcard 27 and a free hit 28 and then a wildcard 29, etc. So, sorry, a bench boost.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, there's no harm in discussing it, but I think concrete plans need to be made once we have all the information.
Sure. Okay. Well, for this week anyway, your team is very well set up, as I think quite a lot of people's will be really. So, yeah, the advice being it's probably just best to roll, sit back, gain as much information as possible. Yeah. With that all being said, mate, I think that's going to do it for this one. If that's all good with you. Yep.
Sounds good. Yeah. So I think it's a pretty fairly straightforward week in terms of transfers. So all good.
A little sleeper week, I say, as we get into the more serious weeks coming up. But anyway, guys, really hope you have enjoyed this one. A little bit of a calm one before the storm, but nonetheless, good luck this week. I hope you have some green arrows and enjoy the Arsenal City game. And with that all being said, we'll see you next time.